So let's begin. Good evening, everyone. I am Pradyumna, and I feel extremely delighted to welcome you all on the second episode of Health Shots. I'm a proud member of Kanyathon, Run for Her, and today I'll be your host of this evening virtual wellness session of Health Shots on supplements and other fitness aspects for marathon runners. Kanyathon is an initiative which not only cares for the well-being of the girl child, but also for our participants who are being a part of this auspicious cause. So let's begin. Here we have a very special guest, Mr. Arun Bhattacharya. A pharmacist by profession, Arun is a proud owner of Built by BB Fitness. He is a celebrity and lifestyle coach and holds multiple certifications in personal training and sports nutrition. Arun's focus as a coach has always been driven by solutions that can help clients achieve their desired results in the most health-focused and sustainable manner. He believes that fitness is a part of everyone's life and not their life in entirety. Arun has been a brand advocate of several esteemed companies like MuscleTech, Fast and Up India, MyProtein UK, Optimum Nutrition, Access by Amway, and many other homegrown fitness brands. So let's welcome Arun. Arun, are you there?
Yes, I'm very much here. Good evening, guys. How are you?
Yeah, we are fine, Arun. We are fine. Thank you. So let's begin with it. First of all, I would like to thank our sponsors for the day. I want to thank our corporate sponsor, Prelio, who is in the noble cause of providing STEM education for the underprivileged girls. I would also like to thank Egos, who will provide nutritious breakfast on 12th of March, and Elcita for providing us the venue, and Red FM for being our radio partner. So, beloved listeners, be ready to witness an amazing session and the quiz that follows up. The question will be posted on Kanyathon Instagram handle. So listen very keenly, and those who get it right will get amazing prizes. To maintain the session decorum, everybody has been put on mute. In case you have questions, please post it on the message box. And I think you must be having questions because Arun is a very seasoned in fitness entrepreneur as well as a person enthusiast. So let's start. Running a marathon is not an easy task. It requires optimal level of fitness to reach to the pinnacle. In the journey of being a runner or even starting to be, dietary and nutrition needs are the most crucial requirements to achieve the objective. And this is where Arun's expertise lies. So let's understand what actually goes in being a runner. The first question that I'm going to put is, the marathon runners who are beginning their journey, as well as those who have been a runner, but wish to increase their performance, what kind of nutritional regime should be there for beginners further moving to the advanced level? Please answer, Arun.
So the thing is that, and first of all, I hope I'm fairly audible to everybody.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
you are.
Great. So the thing is that, let me first and foremost address the biggest problem that I see when people take up something, not just marathon, anything that is, trending. I see a lot of people, finding the concept of, grasping onto, taking an interest in marathon very easily, especially in corporate culture and all. You have the TCS 10K and all these different initiatives. I have worked extensively with this brand called Fast Up for about 6 years. They started out as a brand that was primarily sponsoring a lot of marathons. So the biggest problem that I see people have when they are looking into taking up something like a marathon is they just think that it's as simple as just going and running. You want to run a marathon, so just wear a pair of shoes, wear a shorts, a t-shirt, and just go run. And even when I see advertisements on TV or on social media or anything of that sort, it's a great community builder. The whole marathon running community, the endurance activity community, it's a great place to be. I have a lot of clients who are marathon runners, and I completely understand the psychological high that you get by, participating in something like this, and the sense of accomplishment that you get when you, finish a marathon. But here is the caveat, right? The biggest caveat in all of this is that, like every other sport, people need to respect their bodies and understand its limitations when it comes to marathon. or any other sport for that matter, right? So yes, it's very easy to pick up something like marathon running because you like it. You want to be a part of that community. You want that psychological high that maybe your friends or other fellow runners have told you about, that sense of accomplishment and everything. But you have to treat it like every other sport. And like every other sport, you need to look after certain pillars that are very important from a general health standpoint, which is your nutrition, your training, especially because this is a very this is a sport that obviously puts a lot of strain on your joints, especially on your lower body. So even supplementation becomes very, very important. And not to mention, even a big part of all of this is your recovery. And recovery is not just getting a massage done or stretching or just getting good sleep. Those are important as well, but even perhaps in some situations you need to work with a sports therapist or a physiotherapist to make sure that you are not susceptible to injuries, or you are not avoiding an injury or overlooking an injury. So I think the main thing that people need to understand about marathon and have a slight change in mindset is this, that we need to treat it with a lot of respect. We need to understand, like every other sport, marathon also is a very serious sport. And lately there have been a lot of onset of injuries and even some fatalities in some extreme cases, because people just don't look into all these other aspects. They just think that marathon is like just wearing a pair of shoes and just going for a run. And it's a very mental sport, right? Because if you have the willpower, like I know cases where runners have torn their Achilles heel, or they've injured their knees, or they're feeling pain in their hips, but they still push through because they feel that it's a mental battle. And it is a mental battle, but it's a mental battle you should try to win when your body has been nourished and looked after properly, and not treat it in a manner where you're going to land up harming it. So I think that's the first thing that I would like to sort of bring into everyone's notice who is into marathon running, is this resetting of the attitude towards marathon running. It's not just an activity where you get to be a part of a community. It's not about it's not just about a personal sense of accomplishment. Definitely, I respect people who would do it for all those reasons, but also do it with a proper systematic planning of your nutrition, your training, and all other aspects. And then you might actually be surprised how much more performance you can squeeze out of your body when you actually look into all those other aspects as well. So I think that's the precedent I would like to set for today's discussion, and in terms of your first question, this is the answer that I think I would like to give everybody, that it requires, like a proper, every other sport, it requires proper planning and approach.
I think your answer was very, very informative for us. So you put a very strong emphasis on things like training, nutrition, and conditioning. So what kind of training goes before anyone starts their running journey? What kind of training they should go through before starting any running journey? Can you put an emphasis on that?
Since most people who take up marathon running are day-to-day people, who have jobs or who are into businesses or whatever, unless you're a serious marathon runner, that's a very small population, and that's a much more detailed discussion. But since most people are day-to-day people, the first thing that I would focus on is focusing on your mobility, basic strength and conditioning of your lower body. So making sure that you are, training your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves. And I'm not saying training in a generic sense where you just go to the gym and just pick up some weights and do these exercises. Running, like every other sport, has its own set of sports training protocols. Now, you can learn those by just, watching some content on YouTube, because it's a very popular sport. There is a lot of content related to running marathons on YouTube, on Google also. So you can definitely find some information to get you started with. And then eventually, over a period of time, you can progress by hiring a coach, or maybe being part of a running club where they have coaches, who guide the whole club. And from there onwards, you can actually, start building it up. But it basically requires a lot of lower body strength and conditioning, a lot of emphasis on your mobility primarily, You've got to make sure that your hip joints, your knees, your ankles, even your toes, wearing the right shoes is also very, very important, depending on how your feet are shaped. You can't just buy a generic running shoe of Nike or Under Armour. It has to be something that suits you. Everything from your heel to toe action, all of those things, need to be looked into when you are, just doing a general preparation from a training perspective for a marathon. And of course, the better you get at it, the more professional help you can seek, the more information you can seek, and you will obviously get more and more better at it. But the number one priority should be with respect to like if somebody asks me, why should I train for a marathon? Why can't I just do practice runs and get better at my marathons? Primary reason is to make sure you don't get injured, because it's very easy to injure your hip joints, your knees, your ankles, especially your knees and ankles. Just last weekend, a client of mine, he just out of impulse ran a half marathon that happened here in Hyderabad, and he came home in the evening. He could barely walk, and I had to immediately, he was like, I just ran a half marathon today just for the heck of it. And I immediately gave him like a very high dosage of electrolytes. I gave him about 1,000 mg of potassium citrate. Then I told him to have a very, simple, but a very, healthy amount of carbohydrate-rich meal with a decent quantity of protein and things like that. And he said after he did all those things, the next day he felt better. But it took him 2 days to recover from that run. And he just did it out of, just for fun, thinking, hey, let me go see how far I can run. And then it had such a huge physical impact on him, because he's not a runner. He's not somebody who runs regularly. And he landed up having a lot of pain at the bottom of his feet because he obviously didn't wear the right shoes. His ankles and knees took a lot of beating. So it's just not worth it. The thing is, to just experience that mental high, but putting your body through all of that, it's not worth it. So we train to make sure that the body doesn't get injured. We train to make sure that the body has more resilience towards the run. And end of the day, you're training so that you can run better. If you, when you start training, and also when you start doing practice runs, you will notice that the training combined with good nutrition and recovery is actually helping you improve your time. So it's not just about, running for the heck of it. Run like every other things in life where you want to perform better. Running should also be approached in the same way, especially something like a marathon.
Yeah, Parun, that was a very detailed and informative answer, because you put all the aspects from the size of the shoes, the texture and all that, till what kind of training goes into it. So now I think now we should get into the thing that there are many friends of mine as well as the corporates who are here, who are either starting their fitness journey or who are just in the premature phase of their fitness journey or in the premature phase of running. So most of the times they think of what kind of nutritional regime or what kind of nutritional regime as well as dietary regime they should follow, either to increase their performance or to at least build up that thing, remove that fat that they have, and in the weight loss journey as well as gaining muscles, because as we can see, you look perfect in whatever way you are. So everyone in the list, they want to get a body like that. They want to get in the fitness shape, the shape that they want in their body. So what goes into reaching that optimal level of fitness, getting into that good shape? What is the dietary needs? What are the other needs? What kind of sleep and all that? What goes into this? What kind of conditioning goes into becoming that optimal level of fitness, reaching that optimal level of fitness?
So first of all, let me set the expectations correctly. Number one, I am not a marathon runner. And number two, if you want to look like me, you cannot be doing marathon running, because then your body is just going to burn through all your muscles. The simplest example I can give is, look at Olympic level, athletes, look at a sprinter, 100 meters or even a 200 meter sprinter. They look more like bodybuilders, because they train what we call their short twitch fibers, which are basically the thicker, more explosive force generating fibers in your body. So obviously when you develop those, you get that very built muscular look, as opposed to somebody, let's say, who's running 1,500 meters or even 10,000 meters and all of those races, where they're much more leaner because they are building up what we call more of the endurance fibers. They cannot generate a lot of force, but at the same time, they allow you to, continue to do an activity for a very long time. For example, something like jogging or running. So if you're trying to lose weight with marathon running, it's about it running in general. Yes, it's a great way to increase your caloric burn. But of course, weight loss starts with what you're first and foremost putting in your mouth, right? So if you are eating butter chicken and paratha and thinking that running is going to be your way of burning it, that's not the way to do it, right? You can't, negate junk food by, abusing your body. That's not the way it works, right? I'm not saying don't eat paratha and butter chicken, but everything in, moderation is the key, right? And the first thing that I would like to highlight here when it comes to any kind of fitness journey is to have an inside out approach. So first and foremost, do your blood test reports. If required, maybe even consult a doctor with your ultrasound and EKG, ECG, and all those things. And I'm not talking about a population of people in their 40s or 50s. I'm talking for everybody. Like as a coach, when somebody comes to me, when they want to sign up, the first thing I ask them for is a blood work. And if they don't have their blood test reports, I will not sign them up with me, because I need to first and foremost know as a coach what is internally happening, your kidney parameters, your lipid parameters, your liver parameters, all of that. Especially some of the nutritional deficiencies which have become very, very rampant these days. 90% of the people out there are vitamin D deficient. Most vegetarians are B6, B12 deficient. Most of us are magnesium deficient. Many people who've had multiple bouts of COVID have low hemoglobin, have low iron ferritin saturation. So there are all these nutritional imbalances and deficiencies that are there. And if you're taking up a sport without fixing those, then it's just a ticking time bomb. So the first thing is get your blood test done, whether you consult a doctor or a dietitian or whoever it is, get the blood test done, get those nutritional deficiencies corrected. Then comes the next aspect, which is just balancing your diet out. And I don't propose anything super fancy or super specific when it comes to, taking up a sport like marathon. Obviously, it's a very high caloric requirement sport. So you should not be afraid to consume lots of fruits and grains and pulses. You need a healthy dose of carbohydrates because that's going to be the primary fuel for your muscles. Other than that, you definitely need a decent amount of fats. At least 20-25% of your calories should be coming from healthy fats like, your monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Even a little bit of saturated fats is not bad at all. And of course, a decent amount of protein, not a lot, but a decent amount of protein. And when I say protein, I don't mean protein powders. I mean protein from whole foods. So if you're a vegetarian, get it from dairy sources, pulses, legumes, things like that. If you're a non-vegetarian, of course, we have an array of options. But for a marathon runner, they need to have a balanced diet. They should definitely not try doing a marathon run or become a marathoner if they're doing something like a ketogenic diet or something like that. It's going to be very energy demanding and, might cause some health issues for you. But yeah, I mean, these are some basic things that need to be looked at as far as, the diet and the training are concerned. And of course, my philosophy with supplementation is very simple. Whatever is missing in your diet needs to be supplemented. There is no arguments there. So if your vitamin D is low, supplement it. Can I not get enough vitamin D if I get enough sun exposure? Sure. But until you get enough sun exposure, because please remember that the reason you have low vitamin D is because you don't have enough sun exposure. And if that is not something that you can fix immediately in your day-to-day lifestyle, then that will continue to be a problem. Another issue is that even doctors will recommend a very short window of vitamin D supplementation where they'll tell you to take a huge dosage like 60,000 IU once a week for like 2 months. But the fact of the matter is that after that course is done, because vitamin D, for example, is a fat-soluble vitamin, your body will maintain, maybe for another couple of months, your body will maintain healthy levels of vitamin D. But eventually the levels will again go down because, again, The problem itself is that you're not getting enough sun exposure and you're not getting enough vitamin D through your diet. So your vitamin D will again become low. So what I recommend as a coach is a small daily dosage of vitamin D, which actually has been shown to be more beneficial for you than taking a large dose on a day-to-day basis. And if you're somebody, who does your blood work regularly, then you can track what your vitamin D levels are. And with the help of your doctor or your coach, you can maintain those healthy levels in the long run. And it's the same with the other nutrients as well. If you're a vegetarian, it's smart on your part to at least take a B complex or even a B12. It's definitely advisable to take omega-3 because most of us don't get it from the diet. Magnesium, again, is another supplement that I highly recommend. Very important for good quality sleep and all. Sleep is becoming a very big issue with a lot of people these days. I know a lot of people who tell me that they go to bed every day at 10 o'clock, they wake up at 6 o'clock, but they don't get restful sleep. They're sleeping 8 hours, but they wake up feeling drowsy. They wake up multiple times during the night. These are not good signs. These are signs that your body is telling you that something is either psychologically bothering you. It could be down to your subconscious. Again, I'm not a subject expert in that, but it's a general pattern I've noticed where people carry so much of stress when they go to bed. And that is the time of the day when the body is the most idle. So पूरे दुनिया भर का कचरा आपके दिमाग में तभी आता है, right? And sometimes the poor quality of sleep is also because of poor nutritional deficiencies, because of lack of magnesium, zinc. These are minerals which are very important for the manufacture of for the production of melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So I would take it step by step. Get your blood test done, get your nutrition fixed. Then, of course, look into other lifestyle aspects, your water intake, your sleep, and then you can look into your training, where you can just start with a very simple training protocol, very specific for running, which includes a lot of mobility, flexibility, basic strength and conditioning, and getting started from there.
Oh, I think many things are there which are to be taken care of before entering into any.
I am just scratching the surface, my friend. there is so much to it, but then of course it's more specific. It's case to case basis. I'm just giving a general overview of what people need to look into when they are considering becoming a marathon runner or a long distance runner.
So Arun, you talked about injuries and strokes. And actually, there have been these have become very prevalent in all kind of age groups. Not just there was a time when strokes used to come at people of who were older. Nowadays, even age of 21, a person with age of 21 has died because of strokes. So somewhere it has created a notion that it is somehow related to that people do physical activities and that is leading them to stroke. Or maybe they are taking much protein powder or creatinine. These are considered as the criminal for taking them towards this condition. So why don't you burst that myth, or what is the truth behind? Because no one knows the truth behind. Everyone is just anticipating and thinking about that. Yeah, this must have happened. That must have happened. So why don't you put up the truth that what is the real factor behind it?
See, there are multiple things at play here. Let me give you the explanation that I generally give to my clients. Let's say that I am one of those people who believes that physical activity and protein supplementation, or just generally having a fitness lifestyle, is causing this. So what is the other end of it? I sit at home and do nothing, right? I just reduce my physical activities. I don't work. I don't do anything. So what is the other end of the spectrum is my question, right? I'm a personal trainer, right? I'm a sports nutritionist and a personal trainer. I clock in an average of 14 to 16,000 steps, closing my eyes every day, right? I wake up at around 4 o'clock every day. My first client is at 5. I'm in bed every day by around 9 o'clock. So I sleep 9 to 4. I wake up at 4. I leave the house at 5. I train clients back to back till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I do my workout. And in between this, I also eat my meals, which I carry with me. Then I do my own training at around 1 o'clock. I finish my training around 2:30. I come home. I eat my lunch at around 3. Then I get a couple of hours break. Then again in the evening at 5 o'clock onwards till about 8:30 in the evening, I'm training clients. I eat my last meal in my car. I only eat one meal at home, right? That is how physically demanding my job is, right? But I recently did my blood test reports, which I do once a year, right? And everything looks great. And the way my life is designed in terms of my nutrition, my training, all of that put together, the way all of that is designed is somebody else asking a question or something?
Harsh, please mute yourself. Harsh, please mute yourself.
I think as a host, you can only mute it if somebody speaks at your end.
Sir, I'm just anchor. I think host is someone else. But yeah, please mute yourself. Mute yourself, Harsh.
So for me, that is how physically taxing my day is. And even when my clients, generally who meet me on a regular basis, they tell me that, how do you find the strength and the mental strength and the physical strength to do your own workout after you have trained everybody? Because I am somebody who has to lead by example. If I am not fit in my business, my body is my billboard. If I am not fit, if I don't look fit, right? A lot of people might say, "Ha, dikhta fit hai, par andar kya chal raha hai, kya pata?" Which is why I do the blood tests, which is why I do regular tests. I do ultrasound of my chest cavity, my abdominal cavity, making sure my organs are all in the right dimensions. I do treadmill tests to make sure my heart health is fine, EKG, ECG, all of these things, especially in the recent past, because all these health issues have become more prevalent. My family, like my wife, my father, my brother, they're all very worried that, what's going on, because people obviously don't understand what's happening. But as a fitness trainer, because this is what I do for a living, do I have any other choice but being physically active? Right. So what I personally feel could be some of the contributing factors is, number one, the world in general is very stressed right now. Whether it's the war in Ukraine, whether it's the markets, whether it's whatever it is, people these days in general are a lot more stressed than they used to be. And I think people still don't realize how much impact stress has on your internal health. Like, for example, recently with all the tech layoffs that have happened, even though many of the companies have given substantial pay to their employees, the fact is that when you don't have a job, you get all kinds of negative thoughts in your mind. And, that does have physical manifestations. People may not want to believe it, but if you have a fight with your parents, or if you have a fight with your boss, or, maybe you're driving on the road and somebody hits your car and you're like, "Are yaar, abhi mere ko 20,000 rupees kharcha karke gaadi ka repainting karana padega." All this is stress. And it all contributes in so many different ways, both psychologically and physiologically on your body. So that is the first thing I think a lot of people overlook. A lot of people don't do anything for stress management. Like, I personally myself, I do yoga twice a week. I was never fond of yoga. I found it very boring. But, over the years, I have realized that, mental stress is a huge part of, what my work profile is, because I freelance. I don't work for a gym. So, I used to have a joke with my wife until COVID happened, that the worst thing that could happen to me is one day I will wake up and I will not have any business. And on March 14th, 2020, that's exactly what happened. I was in Bangalore. I woke up one day and the government announced a lockdown. And I could not step out of my house and train people. I lost the power to control my own life because there was a pandemic, right? So that joke became my reality. And I know the kind of stress that it manifested it into on myself, both psychologically, physically. I went out of shape. I felt purposeless. All of those things were happening. So stress is something a lot of people don't factor in. And many of these issues that people are facing these days is stress related, directly or indirectly, but it is stress related. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not in a position to, further, go into this, but this is definitely one thing. Secondly, there was another topic that there was a medical condition that a lot of time, especially during the lockdowns, was discussed a lot, which is myocarditis. So obviously, when people do their blood test, you should check for your D-dimer levels. You should do a thorough screening of all your cardiac profile. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying that, with my clients also, when they come to me, if they've had COVID, I always tell them, please do a thorough cardiac profile. Please get your D-dimer level tested and all of that, because we want to make sure that there is no sign of myocarditis in your body. Because the thing with myocarditis is that there is no symptom. There are no symptoms. So it's a silent killer. So these are things that are, contributing. Because for me, I cannot make sense of the fact when somebody comes and says that physical activity is something that people need to worry about. If you sleep well, if you eat well, if you're nourished, if your blood markers are all clean as per your blood test reports and everything, then there is absolutely no reason why you should have these issues. But the problem is that even if people think they're eating healthy, they're sleeping well and all of that, most of us are not in the habit of doing regular blood work. They only do it when something goes wrong, which is horrible. And secondly, people don't factor in things like stress management and all of that. Like, there are so many clients of mine who are having so many issues in their marriage, in their work, in their businesses. And I sometimes tell them, मुझे बोलने से अच्छा है आप जाके काउंसलर के साथ बैठ के बात करो, because I am not a professional. As a friend, as your coach, I can just listen to you, but I'm not in a position to advise you. But then they get scared. They're like, why should I go to a counselor? There is nothing wrong with me. Because the whole idea of going to a counselor or going to a psychologist is all about, it's so stigmatic, right? And unfortunately, I grew up in a house where, my mother had paranoid schizophrenia. So I have seen mental health manifest in its worst way. Like, I have seen the kind of domestic violence and all that I have seen in my own house, because see, I at least have done pharmacy, so I have some idea of, when I did my pharmacy degree, I started looking at my mom as somebody who's first and foremost a patient. So, my perception towards her changed, because I realized that she's not doing these things purposely. But my father, on the other hand, or even my elder brother, who didn't have a medical background, who didn't understand why my mom was behaving a certain way, could not make sense of her behavior, her violence, her erraticness in her behavior. I mean, in depression, what happens is, again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just saying from my own experience. In depression, which is obviously very common, you can, your mood can either be here, which is very elated, or it can be here, which is very depressed. But if you know a person, I mean, if you see somebody who's feeling sad, you'll be like, hey, why are you depressed? It's a very common word we use. In schizophrenia, which my mom had, the behavior can be like this. Now, imagine living with that person, right? And unfortunately, my mom had a multitude of other health issues and she passed away in 2012. But, her life is something I use as an example with a lot of, clients of mine. And I tell them that you do not want to risk your mental health at any level. People pay such huge amounts of money these days on, hiring a fitness trainer, setting up fancy home gyms, all that. But the moment the topic of mental health comes, they get scared. Like, no, there is nothing wrong with me. They go into this denial thing. For me, if you are hiring a trainer to get you in shape, then talking to a counselor is just like hiring a trainer. You're taking that person's help to get your mind in shape. And, I take a lot of pride that my own wife now, who is into life coaching, she's done her NLP certifications and all of that. So she now helps a lot of my clients with their mental health. And I have seen the way that has completely transformed the way my clients approach their health now. Because if you're mentally not fit, you can never be physically fit. You can do your 3 months transformations and all of that, but you'll go back to eating rubbish and putting on all that weight again. In fact, 90% of my clients are these kind of people, who just come, sir, मैंने ये diet किया था, ये workout किया था, ये किया था, इतना weight lose किया था, फिर से आ गया. फिर से क्यों आ गया? फिर से क्यों आ गया? Why couldn't you sustain it? Nay, because my trainer put me on this kind of diet, that kind of workout, I couldn't sustain it. So why did you do something that you couldn't sustain? Right? So fitness has been a journey of mine for 22 years. And then, at some point of time, somebody said, hey, why don't you help me? And that's how I became a coach, right? So I strongly, would recommend people, of course, we have digressed a lot from what your question was, but I would strongly recommend people that when it comes to things like, heart attacks, strokes, and all of that, instead of, taking the knee-jerk reaction कि जिम मत जाओ, दूसरों को भी जिम मत जाने दो, ये मत करो, वो मत करो, तो फिर क्या घर पे बैठे रहेंगे क्या? वॉक करने जाएंगे? आपके 20 साल के बेटे को आप बोलो जाओ बेटा वॉक करो, तुम्हारे 70 साल के ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स के साथ तुम भी वॉक करने जाओ. Come on, yaar. I mean, are you telling me that a mother who is carrying a child on her lap, right, and let's say, playing with that child, isn't that going to increase her heart rate? That child also has a certain amount of weight, right? Or if you go to the supermarket and if you buy groceries, you are not going to carry those grocery bags, right? For example, in training, I teach my clients a very simple movement called the deadlift, right? So many of my clients ask me that, what is the functional application of deadlift? I said the basic functional application of deadlift is you're basically picking up a dead object from the floor. Whether you're bending down to lift your credit card that you have dropped, or your grocery bags, or maybe you're playing with a dog and you want to lift the puppy up, any kind of weight that you lift up from the floor using your hands is a deadlift. So if you do deadlifts in the gym, it becomes easier for you. For example, you are going on the road, you see a guy on the bike, he falls down, you go lift the bike, that's a deadlift. You have just performed the deadlift. Now imagine you stop doing all those things and then suddenly you want to help people on the road. तो फिर आप, क्योंकि फिजिकल एक्टिविटी करने से हार्ट अटैक होगा, आप क्या लोगों को मदद करना बंद कर दोगे? आप क्या ग्रोसरी बैग्स उठाना बंद कर दोगे? आप क्या बच्चों के साथ खेलना बंद कर दोगे? तो ये क्या बात हुई कि इन सब चीजों में कुछ नहीं होता, लेकिन जैसे ही जिम में जाओगे, भाई जिम में तो भाई शनि बैठा है, हाँ जिम में तो भाई शनि बैठा है, हाँ तुम जिम में जैसे फिर आप भी बेटा तुम्हारा हार्ट अटैक होने वाला है, तुम जिम क्यों आए हो? I mean, come on, you have to. My chemistry teacher used to tell me this, and because of that statement, I have a lot of empathy towards the world. She used to always say, Arunava, common sense is not so common. And whenever I hear statements like this, and I get so many messages on my Instagram, this and that, sir, aap itna weight uthate ho, ye actor mar gaya, wo actor mar gaya, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. I'm like, let me tell you one thing. I don't know any other way of living. My 75-year-old father, he still wakes up every day morning, still goes for a jog, comes back home, eats his breakfast, goes to the gym after that, works out, and then starts his day. I am 36 years old. I have been seeing that man for 36 years of my life, living the same routine every day. And also every day evening, he'll sit with one peg of single malt scotch and then have his dinner and then go to bed. तो उनकी बुरी आदतें भी हैं, उनकी अच्छी आदतें भी हैं. What I have learned from him is, बेटा हर चीज moderation में करो. Don't do anything in extreme. तुम्हें बॉडी बिल्डिंग करनी है, करो, लेकिन do it in moderation. तुम्हें फिट रहना है, do it in moderation. तुम्हें मिठाई खाना है, do it in moderation. Problem is, we don't live in a generation of moderating anymore. Everybody wants everything overnight. And unfortunately, the whole concept of fitness is not about being fit anymore. People go to the gym because they want to impress their girlfriends or boyfriends or their relatives, या किसी की शादी है. 99% जनता यही goals के साथ आते हैं. Yeah. I can count the number of people who've just come to me in my last 10 years of coaching and said, I just want to be fit. I can literally count those people in my hand. Everybody comes with very superficial goals. And when you come with such superficial goals, when you come with limited amount of time, you're obviously going to do extreme things to achieve those results. So the question is, are you really becoming fit by trying to achieve those results with the methods you're applying? That's a question nobody's going to answer honestly, sadly. And that's the gray area in this whole thing. And obviously when deaths happen or any kind of, injury happens, especially with related to heart health or whatever it is, it's more convenient for people to just blame the gym or those habits rather than asking themselves, ki, maybe there could be some other reason here which we are not aware of.
Yes, actually, you gave us a food for thought about this. That yeah, what goes in? There are lots of aspects that goes in, and we think of just one thing. So now let's get back to our question for the marathon runners. That there has always been the dietary needs have always been a demanding thing. Supplements have their own side. Dietary needs
Right.
are having their own side, and there have always been this question about veg versus non-veg. Nowadays, vegan is another aspect that has come into line. So, what are the basic dietary needs that you think that should be maintained before going into a marathon?
Again, I'm going to keep the answer very simple. I'm not going to say specific to marathon running per se. I will start with what is a basic requirement for everybody. Get at least a gram of protein per kg of body weight, which means that if you're somebody who's 60 kilos, try to get at least 60 grams of protein from your diet. And when I say diet, I mean diet, not your protein powders. You can get some protein from your protein powders if you're somebody who doesn't get enough of it from the diet. But getting 60 grams of protein or 70 grams of protein, and this kind of number I'm saying is because most average people weigh around that much. An average lady would probably weigh somewhere in the region of 50, 60 kilos. An average man might weigh somewhere in the range of 70, 80 kilos. So getting 60 to 80 grams of protein is not much of a challenge, even for a vegetarian, even for a vegan also, right? So for example, 100 grams of chicken breast has about 25 grams of protein. So that means if you just eat 200 grams of chicken breast, a lady can get all the protein that she needs in the entire day, right? And 200 grams of chicken breast is not a lot. If you split it even between your lunch and dinner, it's hardly anything, right? But that's solid 50 grams of protein. Uske saath, if you add some pulses, legumes, nuts, and all of that, you'll get an additional 10, 20 grams of protein. So get enough protein in the diet. Make sure that you're eating lots of healthy fats. And of course, when you're into marathon running, make sure that you're eating plenty of, low glycemic carbohydrates. When I say low glycemic, I primarily mean pulses, legumes, grains, all of that. And by the way, a lot of people will argue and say that pulses and legumes are protein sources. No, they're actually more of carbohydrate sources. They also have some protein in them, but they're primarily carbohydrate sources. So be mindful of that when you use them in the diet as well. Then, of course, your things like vegetables and fruits also have their place. They have a lot of vitamins, minerals. Fruits, again, especially are very good because a lot of fruits, especially citrus-based fruits, have a lot of natural electrolytes in them. So having them, after a run can help you replenish your muscle glycogen and electrolytes and all of that. So these are just some basic things that applies to everybody, not just from a marathon running perspective, but applies to everybody. Now, when it comes to marathon running specifically, there are, carb loading protocols that need to be done before a run. There is a lot of electrolyte replenishment that needs to happen during the run. So it all depends whether you're running 5K or a 10K or a half marathon or a full marathon. You will also prepare your body according to that. So that is definitely way more specific, but there we get into more specific details like electrolyte replenishment, all of that. So that's a more specific topic altogether.
Yeah, Parun, yeah. That requires lots of strength, that requires lots of
basics
benefits.
Yeah,
that's the most important, because we don't do the basics and then we blame that this happened because of this happened because of this. So as you talked about stress, and most of us, they are corporates, they are students, and we don't have fixed sleeping timings. Sometimes we sleep at 2, sometimes we sleep at 3. And due to these reasons, sometimes we get a backache. Sometimes it happens that we get a backache or neck is paining and something like that. Even at times it happens that a little bit of weather changes and our body starts fluctuating. We get fever and all those diseases. So even those who are marathon running, for building immunity building is the most important task. Because if you don't have that immunity, as you told, that even if I have a big body and what goes inside and what's going on inside, I don't know about it. That will be a harmful thing for us. So what kind of stretches or conditioning is required to keep our mind and body efficient and our immunity stronger? So that either we run in a marathon or we are in the life, running in life, we put our best foot forward.
When it comes to immunity, it actually starts primarily with your sleep. And when I say sleep, it's the quality of sleep, not just the duration of sleep. It starts with your sleep, because please understand that 70% of your recovery in your body happens when you sleep. Everything from majority of the hormone production to, your brain completely resetting itself, your liver cleansing itself out. All of this happens. In fact, when you're sleeping, you actually burn more calories than when you're sitting. And in fact, that might come as a surprise to a lot of people. But sleep is actually quite an active point of time for your body, because that's the time when you are not moving around or eating or doing anything. So that's the time that the body gets to properly reset everything in place. And that is very, very important from an immunity perspective. If your duration of sleep and your quality of sleep are both compromised, like if someone comes and says, I sleep only 4, 5 hours or 6 hours, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And even if you sleep 8 hours, but if you keep waking up intermittently, that's also not a very good sign. So when I'm talking sleep, I'm saying 7 to 8 hours of sound sleep. Like you go to sleep and you wake up without even realizing ki kya hua raat ko. Like, that kind of deep sleep. You need to sleep like that every single night if you expect your immunity to be at its best. Okay. Uske baad aap marathon bhago ya aap Mount Everest chado, it doesn't matter. But your immunity will be at its peak. And of course, to allow the body to recover like that, nutrition plays a huge role. So making sure all your vitamins and minerals are in place. Of course, protein plays a huge role in your immunity, because your immunocytes and all are all made from, different amino acids. So protein plays a huge role. Your protein intake needs to be optimal. You can definitely add a lot of antioxidants into your diet, like vitamin C, zinc, resveratrol, and things like that. And not to mention, even basic exercising, just, doing some mobility drills and all of those things will allow your lymphatic system to properly recirculate itself, make sure that your system is fully cleansed out of all the dead cells and all of those things. And in general, also another thing that I would recommend people is, it is important to be hygienic, but don't become too much of an OCD with it. Because body needs a little bit of exposure to germs and other things, and a little bit of dirt and other things to actually sensitize itself when it comes to immunity. I see a lot of people falling sick these days, especially kids, because the parents are super, super hygienic when it comes to their kids. And suddenly when the kids are exposed to any kind of dirt or fungi or bacteria or dust or anything, they fall sick because the body is not sensitized itself. So I'm not saying go on the road and breathe pollution, but definitely indulge in some sort of outdoor activities at least a couple of times a week. If you get a chance to go outside and play, or even just go outside for a walk in the evening or whatever, yes, it might be a little dusty, dirty, whatever it is, but that little bit of dirt, grime actually helps in sensitizing your immunity a little bit. So these are some key aspects. Other than that, something I personally swear by is having Chyawanprash. That has been a big part of my life. It's an acquired taste. I'm not advocating Chyawanprash, and I'm definitely not recommending the ones that you get in the stores. If you have access to a good Ayurvedic doctor who can make like a good Chyawanprash for you, then please go ahead and buy it, because your Dabur and Imami and all, I'm not too sure of the quality of Chyawanprash that they make. So that is something that has helped me a lot. I know a lot of people who swear by some other traditional supplements. Like some people I know, they love taking Safi. There are people who take a lot of vitamin C throughout the day and things like that. So there are multiple approaches that you can take. But for me, sleep, a balanced diet, stress management, and some physical activity are the pillars when it comes to maintaining good immunity. And if you have the bandwidth, you can add things like antioxidants, Chyawanprash, all these things to sort of boost the immunity a little more.
Yep, Aruna, I think that was that you provided us the basic intricacies of what we should go on before going on a marathon run or whatever, even if you want to travel to the Mount Everest. So it was this session has been very informative, as well as provided us lots of food for thoughts. So now let's move towards the audience who are listening to us, and we are going to start the Q&A. So why don't you put your questions on the chat box, and we will ask Arun so that he can provide his precious feedbacks and his solutions about it. So audience, please go on, put up your questions on the chat box. Yeah, we have got the first question. It's from Shubhangi. Will veganism be able to provide the same richness in diet like a non-veg diet? Crucial question.
So very interesting question. Actually, a research paper just came out. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but basically what that research paper said is that if you get sufficient protein, wholesome protein. So what is wholesome protein? Wholesome protein is basically protein which has all the essential amino acids, right? So for vegans, primarily their main wholesome sources are hemp, soy, tofu, tempeh. These are the main this thing. Also, sometimes you can use complementary protein sources. For example, a very simple combination of rajma and chawal, right? It's a comfort food for all of us, but in both those things, you get all the essential amino acids in that combination. So if you get sufficient protein in your diet in adequate amount, it doesn't matter whether it is veganism or vegetarian or non-vegetarian. As far as muscle protein synthesis is concerned, you can still manage to get the same level of muscle protein synthesis regardless of this. And I'm actually very proud to say that I have seen this in my own clients as well. Genetic factors also matter. I have seen people with great genetics who follow a vegan diet, put on a lot of muscle mass, get very fit. And I have seen a lot of people who are non-vegetarians, who don't have the best genetics, who really struggle to gain a lot of muscle mass and things like that. So end of the day, your genetics also play a big role. Of course, your lifestyle choices and all those things also matter. So for the longest time, we thought that non-vegetarians have a huge advantage. But in essence, what I'm trying to say is that if you take a non-vegetarian and a vegetarian, and if both get, or even a vegan, and if all the three get the same amount of protein from wholesome protein sources, then it doesn't really matter.
Yep, I hope Shubhangi got her answer. The next question that we have is from Uddipan. It is, I get to face gastric issues mostly after finishing a 10K or a 21.1K run. Could you please provide some fruitful solutions to avoid bloating kind of issues?
So what generally tends to happen when you finish a run like this is that your adrenaline hormones like your cortisol levels really go up. Okay. Now, whenever there is stress in the body, that stress is going to be massively manifested in your gut. Okay. And of course, that is going to lead to bloating and things like that. So my question to you rather is, where you need to do your homework is, what kind of carb loading protocols are you following? If you're having these kind of bloating issues after these runs, then do you need to supplement with some natural as well as supplemental probiotics? These things matter a lot. Also, what are you using to replenish your salts and other things when you are running? Basically, there is a lot of gastric stress from the run itself, which is why it's causing bloating. So if you look into these aspects, which is primarily your carbohydrate intake before the run, after the run, also during the run, along with the electrolytes, and because you are putting your body through so much, supplementing with probiotics would be a great choice. I myself, because I train pretty hard, I make sure that all my meals have a good amount of probiotics in it. So I drink a lot of kombucha. I eat a lot of curd. I also include foods like sauerkraut, kimchi into my meals. You can also use pickles and other things. So adding some prebiotic and probiotic foods into the mix also will help you deal with the bloating to a certain extent. So I would first look into those aspects. And if those aspects are already addressed at your end, or after addressing them, if you're still having the same issues, then it's perhaps best you consult a gastroenterologist, because there could be a chance that maybe you're having some food allergies or other food intolerances.
Yep. So I think Deepan got his answer. Sunny Prakash has a question that can you suggest any Ayurvedic Chyawanprash that is available in the market? As you talk that is useful actually. Can we?
I don't believe in any of these brands. I did use Organic India for a while, but even then somebody gave me a lab test report of that also, and that was very disappointing. So I am more than happy to share the contact from whom I get my Chyawanprash. He's a doctor based in Ludhiana, and he's more than happy to make the Chyawanprash for you and send it. It's only on order basis. So if you guys are interested, after the session is done, I can share his number and you guys can directly get in touch with him.
Yep. Thank you so much, Arun. The next question is from Chetna Jaiswal, that how omega-3 is helpful in the form of fish oil tablets, and what amount of dose should be taken if we have weak immune system?
Omega-3 is primarily very good for curbing down inflammation. That's the primary reason you want to take an omega-3 supplement. Other than that, of course, there are so many other areas where omega-3 is important. It's involved in millions of different reactions in your body. It's important for brain health. It's important for your hormonal health. It's important even for the replenishment of the cell membrane in your cells. So, that is how important omega-3 is. Dosage wise, look, most people come and tell me like what I would recommend for a normal person who doesn't exercise or who's not very physically active. For such individuals, I would minimum recommend 1000 mg of fish oil. You can get a good fish oil, like a triple strength fish oil, which has a good amount of omega-3 in it. But if you exercise, then your minimum dosage should be at least 2000 to 3000 mg of fish oil. I myself take about 6000 mg per day. So, and some Olympic level athletes take as much as 20,000 mg of fish oil in a day. That's 20 capsules. So it is very dependent on your activity levels, your strain on your body and all of that, because omega-3 is amazing when it comes to reducing inflammation in the body.
Yep, I think Chetna got the answer. Diganta has an interesting question. Here, you talked about vitamin D for everyone. So Diganta has a question that he had vitamin D3 issues. He's having vitamin D3 issues and taking medicine, as you said, 60K for 2 months, as doctor has prescribed. Even tried the sunlight, but nothing happened. Can you please suggest other things to overcome it? Or should I continue taking D3 lower dose, or any good alternative that you can suggest, or what could happen?
See, I mean, look, end of the day, for me, for myself and my clients, convenience is more important, right? Like with my schedule, it's not possible for me to get sunlight because I spend the first half of my day just, in a gym training clients. I can tell my client, hey, come outside, let's train, let's get some sunlight. But, that's not practical. So I find it easier to just supplement my vitamin D. So as a coach, my recommendation is to optimize and not cause any kind of inconvenience for myself or for my clients. I know a lot of people who are a little averse to the idea of taking a capsule or a powder. A lot of people tell me, sir, koi natural tarika batao. Agar natural tarika hota, to main pehle natural tarika hi batata. But kyunki natural tarike convenient nahi hai, this is what my recommendation is. So if you're a normal person who doesn't have much physical activity, you can take about, like women can take about 400 IU of vitamin D every day. Men can take about 800 IU. And if you're into any kind of physical activity, you can take about 1000 IU, 2000 IU. Men who are into very intense training can take about 4000 or 5000 IU every day. But these are just, anecdotal suggestions that I have. The best way to know what the right dosage for you is work with a doctor, get your blood tests done regularly. So if right now your vitamin D is low, you can start taking any dosage. Then after 2-3 months, check again, see what the levels are. Because as per the vitamin D reports, anything below 20 is considered deficiency, but the optimal range is actually 50 to 70. So that's where your vitamin D needs to be. So you need to work with your doctor and play with the dosages in a manner where you try to get it in that range. Once you get it in that range, just maintain that dosage.
Yep. So all these answers were useful. It's the last question that we'll be taking for the day. Is any good brand that you can suggest for omega-3 capsules?
I generally recommend very good brands for omega-3. So there's a German brand called Naturaltein. That's Naturaltein. So Naturaltein has an amazing triple strength omega-3 supplement. It's not very expensive also. So their product is really good. Even the GNC triple strength omega-3 is very good. There is another brand called MuscleTech. They also make a pretty good fish oil. So these are some good brands that you can use. In fact, if you buy from the pharmacy, I think there is this brand, it's called Mega3, MEGA-3. So the one brand that I don't recommend is don't use Sunova 7C's cod liver oil, because that's a very, very low quality fish oil. So wo na lene ke barabar hai. So definitely don't take 7C's cod liver oil. That's a very, very low quality supplement. If you're buying from the pharmacy, you can buy this brand called Mega3. It might be still available. It's been many years since I bought that. Or else you can just buy, the omega-3 triple strength of GNC or Naturaltein or MuscleTech. Any of these international brands are fine.
Yep. With this answer, we end our Q&A sessions, and we would like to thank Mr. Arun for providing his precious times, as well as much more important, the knowledge that he provided us with all these thoughts and all those answers as to why things happen and what is needed to become a pro marathon runner or to even start our fitness journey. We would also like to extend our thanks to the audiences, our friends from the corporates, their friends and family members. So it has been a very informative evening. Thank you so much for everyone for joining, and have a nice day. Thank you, Arun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you everyone who took the time to watch this. I appreciate it. Have a great week, guys. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you.